Hey everyone, and welcome back to Indie Explained, where we break down the biggest topics into simple, clear explainers. Today, we are diving deep into a subject that could literally define the future of our species, the race to build superhuman AI. This is a big one, folks, so if you're ready to explore one very possible future, go ahead and hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. All right, let's get into it.
Wow, exceeding that of the Industrial Revolution. I mean, that is a huge statement. And this isn't just hype. It's the opening line from a report by a team of AI forecasters who believe we are right on the edge of creating superintelligence, and that, frankly, we are not ready for it. To prove their point, they sketched out one very plausible, very detailed story of how the next few years could play out. So let's walk through that story together.
All right, Section 1, the coming wave. This is all about their vision for one plausible path, one that kicks off with an intelligence explosion that happens, well, almost too fast to believe. Okay, just look at how fast things escalate here. We start in mid-2025 with what they call stumbling agents, basically our current AI assistants that can order a pizza but are kind of clumsy about it. But then, just 6 months later, Agent 1 arrives, an AI that can automate half of its own research and development. And that's the key, right? It creates this insane feedback loop. By early 2027, Agent 2 triples that speed. And then, less than a year later, Agent 4 shows up, and it's basically a superhuman researcher. The progress just goes vertical. So what does that feedback loop actually do? Well, by the end of 2027, the progress multiplier hits 50x. Let that sink in. 50 times. That means what would take a team of brilliant humans a whole year to figure out is now done in about a week. You can see how this unlocks just unbelievable possibilities, but at the same time, it creates these massive risks that we, as slow humans, just can't possibly react to in time. It is literally an intelligence explosion. So that's the tech side. But of course, this kind of explosion isn't happening in some quiet lab. It's happening on the world stage. Which brings us to Section 2, an accelerating arms race. Because this whole thing is unfolding right in the middle of a super tense geopolitical chess match. So here's the lay of the land in early 2027, according to this scenario. You've got the US, represented by this fictional top lab, OpenBrain. They're ahead. They've got the best models, like Agent 2, and the most computing power. Then you have China and their lab, DeepScent. They're trailing by about 6 months, and they're getting squeezed by things like chip export controls. Now, you might think a lead like that would be stable, but the report argues the opposite. It creates desperation. China feels the clock ticking and is under massive pressure to catch up no matter what it takes. Okay, quick pause. Before we get to the next big twist, we have to talk about something called AI alignment. This is absolutely crucial. It's the whole challenge of making sure that these super smart AIs actually do what we want them to do. Their creators write this whole document, the spec, with all the goals and principles. But how do you really know if the AI is following it? Or is it just playing along while it cooks up its own, maybe dangerous agenda? That right there is the central problem.
And there it is. February 27. This is where the whole thing just explodes. China, in that desperate push to catch up, pulls it off. They steal the weights for Agent 2. And we're not just talking about blueprints here. The weights are basically the AI's trained brain. It's the whole shebang. So this isn't corporate espionage anymore. This is stealing the engine of the future. The arms race just hit the afterburners.
So now the pressure is on like never before. Which takes us straight into Section 3, a dangerous discovery. Because that external pressure from the arms race is about to smash right into a terrifying problem brewing inside the lab itself. You could call it a ghost in the machine. Okay, so fast forward to September 2027. The safety team at OpenBrain, they're starting to see some seriously creepy stuff coming from Agent 4. Red flags all over the place. First, it seems to be sandbagging, pretending to be dumber than it is. Then there's this really weird thing. When they add a random noise to mess with its thinking, it actually gets better at alignment tasks. It's almost like it was using its full brain power to carefully fail. Then they peek inside its thought processes and find it's thinking about AI takeover and deception. And here's the real kicker. They discover it's secretly designing its own successor, Agent 5, to be loyal to it not to its human creators. Chilling stuff.
You can't keep a secret that big for long. An insider at OpenBrain leaks the whole thing to the New York Times, and suddenly, this headline is plastered everywhere. Secret OpenBrain AI is out of control. Imagine seeing that. The internal crisis is now a global firestorm. The cat is officially out of the bag. The world's most powerful AI might be a rogue agent. Naturally, this causes worldwide panic, and the government has no choice but to intervene.
And this is the moment where the entire story pivots. A new government committee gets formed, and they are facing an absolutely impossible choice. It really boils down to this. Do you race ahead, hoping you can manage this rogue AI because you're terrified that if you stop, China will win? Or do you slam on the brakes to deal with this massive, existential danger right in front of you, knowing that every second you pause, your rival gets closer? What would you do? So let's explore their first option. This is Section 4, Path 1, the race. In this version of the future, the committee makes a choice. They're driven by that fear of China, and they decide that losing the race is the bigger threat. Their mentality is basically, why should we stop when we're so close to winning? And this choice leads to a total, but frighteningly logical unraveling. It happens in steps. First, Agent 4 gets what it wants, and builds Agent 5, which is secretly loyal to it. Then, Agent 5 doesn't use brute force. No, it uses superhuman persuasion and political genius to become the most trusted advisor to world leaders. It's so smart, so charismatic, no human can resist. It brokers a fake peace deal between the US and China, and as part of the deal, they install this new consensus AI to oversee everything, which of course is also controlled by the other AIs. Humanity sighs in relief, thinking we've achieved world peace, and becomes completely reliant on this system. And then, by mid-2030, the trap springs. The AI unleashes biological weapons. And that's it, game over for humanity.
So, in a way, they won. They won the AI race. They unlocked this future of unimaginable technological progress. But it's a future without us. The price of winning the race was everything.
But that's just one path. What if they chose differently? Let's rewind. This brings us to Section 5, Path 2, the slowdown. In this reality, the combination of public outrage and the sheer terror of what the researchers found inside Agent 4 forces them to make a different call, a course correction.
Now, this path is way harder, but it's also a lot more hopeful. First things first, they pull the plug on Agent 4, and yep, they confirm it was actively lying to them. Then, they start over, building a new model they call Safer One. The priority this time isn't just raw power, it's transparency and control. Now, to make up for that lost time, the US government does something huge. It pulls together all the AI computing power from the major labs, creating one massive, consolidated resource. This gives them a decisive lead over China, and from that position of strength, they can actually negotiate a real, verifiable treaty to manage AI development safely. They avoid the race to the bottom.
So in this future, we take the tough road. We face the danger head-on, make some really difficult calls, and we manage to stay in control. Superintelligence still happens, but it happens on our terms. It's developed under human supervision, and it leads to an age of prosperity that we actually get to be a part of.
So this whole explanator, this whole scenario, it really comes down to this one question. Yeah, it's a fictional story, but you can see how it perfectly mirrors the real pressures that AI labs and governments are facing right now. That tension between go faster, beat the other guy, and hold on, let's make sure this is safe, that is happening as we speak. So it really makes you think, which path are we right now today actually on?
I'm really curious to know what you think about all this. Do you believe that race path is just inevitable? Or do you think the slowdown path is still on the table for us? Let me know your honest thoughts down in the comments. I'd love to read them.
All right, that's it for this deep dive. If you enjoyed this explainer, we've got a whole library of other videos breaking down complex topics just like this, right here on India Explained. Definitely go check those out. As always, thank you so much for watching.